My parents joked I was their biggest mistake in front of everyone. I disappeared that night with just $40. 6 years later, they found me and showed up crying. I, 22 still remember the exact moment my life split in two. 6 years ago, I was standing in our kitchen, grabbing a soda from the fridge during my parents' dinner party. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be upstairs finishing a history paper. But I was thirsty, and I thought I could slip in and out without being noticed. That's when I heard my dad's booming laugh. "Speaking of mistakes," he said, gesturing toward the kitchen where I stood frozen, "there's our biggest one right there." The adults around the table, my parents' closest friends, all turned to look at me, their faces flushed with wine and amusement. My mom, always ready to one-up my dad, pointed directly at me and announced with perfect comedic timing, "Nobody loves my 99% effective child." The room erupted in laughter. I stood there, soda can sweating in my hand, as they all laughed at the joke I'd heard variations of my entire life. The unplanned child, the birth control failure, the reason they couldn't afford the vacation home they'd always wanted. I don't remember walking back upstairs. I don't remember sitting on my bed for 2 hours, staring at the wall. But I do remember making the decision. I remember packing my backpack with a change of clothes, my phone charger, and the $40 birthday money I'd been saving. I remember writing a note that simply said, "Now you can have the life you wanted." And I remember walking out the front door at 1 a.m., while they slept off their wine and their laughter. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of no contact. 6 years of building a life from nothing. 6 years of wondering if they ever even looked for me. Until yesterday, when I opened my apartment door to find them standing there, older and tear-stained, begging me to talk. The first few months after I left were the hardest. I slept on a friend's couch until his parents started asking questions. Then I found a shelter that helped me get my GED while working night shifts at a 24-hour diner. The manager there took pity on me, gave me extra shifts, looked the other way when I took home leftover food. I never used my real name on social media again. I changed my phone number. I moved to a different city as soon as I saved enough money. I was determined to disappear completely. By 18, I had my own studio apartment, a shoebox with water damage and noisy neighbors, but it was mine. By 19, I had a decent job at a warehouse that offered tuition assistance. Now, at 22, I'm halfway through a business degree, working as an office manager at a small tech company, and living in a one-bedroom apartment that actually gets sunlight. I built all of this myself. Without them. Without their jokes that cut like knives. Without being reminded daily that my existence was the punchline to their favorite story. I thought I'd moved on. I thought I'd put it all behind me. Then yesterday, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw them. Older, grayer, but unmistakably my parents. My first instinct was to pretend I wasn't home. But something made me open the door. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the need for closure. Maybe just to show them I had survived without them. My mother gasped when she saw me. "It's really you," she whispered, her hand covering her mouth. My father stood slightly behind her, looking smaller than I remembered. "How did you find me?" I asked, not inviting them in. "We hired someone," my father admitted. "We've been looking for years." I almost laughed. "Years? It took you years to decide I was worth looking for." "We've been looking since the day you left," my mother said, her voice breaking. "You covered your tracks well." I stood in the doorway, blocking their entry, as they explained how they'd searched, filed police reports, hired private investigators, joined support groups for parents of runaway teens. How they'd sold their house to fund the search. How they'd never stopped looking. "We made a terrible mistake," my father said, his eyes red-rimmed. "Not just that night. Every time we made those jokes. We thought you knew we were just kidding." "Kidding?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "You told everyone who would listen that I ruined your lives." "We never meant it," my mother pleaded. "We loved you. We still love you." I felt nothing looking at them. No anger. No love. Just emptiness. "I have to go to work," I lied, needing them to leave. "Please," my mother begged. "Just give us a chance to talk. Really talk." I looked at these strangers who shared my DNA and felt the weight of 6 years of silence between us. "I'll think about it," I finally said, and closed the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Their appearance had ripped open wounds I thought had healed. I remembered all the jokes over the years. "There goes our retirement fund," when I needed braces. "This is why we can't have nice things," when I accidentally broke a glass. Should have splurged on the more expensive condoms, when they had to pay for a school trip. Always followed by laughter. Always dismissed if I showed any hurt. "Can't you take a joke? We're just teasing. Don't be so sensitive." But that night at the dinner party was different. It wasn't just the two of them. It was a public humiliation in front of their friends. It was my mother pointing at me like I was an exhibit in a museum of parental regrets. I pulled out my phone and found a text from an unknown number. My mother. They were staying at a hotel nearby. They wanted to meet. They would wait as long as it took. Part of me wanted to block the number and move again. Disappear once more. But another part, a part one thought I'd buried, wanted answers. Needed closure. I texted back. "Coffee shop on the corner of my street. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. 1 hour. Their response came immediately. "We'll be there. Thank you." I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner where I could watch the door. They arrived 10 minutes early, looking anxious and out of place. My mother had aged more than my father, her once dark hair now streaked with gray. They spotted me and approached cautiously, as if I might bolt. "Can we sit?" my father asked, gesturing to the empty chairs at my table. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. They sat down, neither touching the coffees they'd ordered. For a long moment, no one spoke. The cafe buzzed around us, baristas calling out orders, the hiss of the espresso machine, strangers living their normal lives while my past and present collided. "You look good," my mother finally said. "Healthy." "I am," I replied. "No thanks to you." My father winced. "We deserve that. We deserve your anger." "I'm not angry," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I'm nothing. You're strangers to me now." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We were terrible parents. We know that now. Those jokes, they were never funny. They were cruel. We didn't realize how much they hurt you until you were gone." "Why?" I asked, the question I'd carried for 6 years. "Why make them at all?" My father looked down at his hands. I wish I had a good answer. We thought it was just our family's sense of humor. My parents joked about me the same way. Your mother's parents too. It was how we were raised. "But that doesn't make it right," my mother added quickly. "When you left, we found your note. It destroyed us. We realized then how our words had made you feel, that you thought we'd be happier without you. Weren't you?" I challenged. "No," my father said firmly. "We were broken. We still are." My mother reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo album. "We brought this to show you what you meant to us, what you still mean to us." I hesitated before taking it. Inside were photos I'd never seen. My father holding me as a newborn, tears streaming down his face. My mother and me baking cookies, both of us covered in flour. Family vacations I remembered, but from angles I hadn't seen. Me laughing on a beach, me asleep against my father's shoulder on a long car ride. "We were terrible at showing it," my mother said softly. "But you were the best thing that ever happened to us. Not a mistake. Never a mistake." I closed the album, uncomfortable with the emotions it stirred. "It's too late for this. We know we can't undo the past," my father said. "We're not asking to be your parents again. We just want a chance to know you, the adult you've become. And maybe, someday, a chance to earn your forgiveness." I looked at these broken people across from me. They had hurt me deeply. They had failed me as parents. But sitting there, I realized something unexpected. Holding onto the pain wasn't protecting me anymore. It was just keeping me tethered to the past. "I need time," I said finally. "This isn't something I can decide in one coffee meeting." Relief flooded their faces. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't rejection either. "We understand," my mother said. "We'll wait, however long it takes." As I stood to leave, my father asked, "Can we at least know your life now? What you do? If you're happy." I paused, then gave them the briefest outline: my job, my studies, my apartment. Not enough for them to feel like they were part of my life, but enough to show them I had survived. I had thrived. "I'm proud of you," my father said, his voice thick. "So proud of what you've accomplished on your own." The words hit me harder than I expected. For years, I told myself I didn't need their approval or their pride, but hearing it still affected me. "I have to go," I said, suddenly needing space. "Can we contact you again?" my mother asked, hope and fear mingling in her voice. I hesitated, then nodded once before walking away. Update: 3 months later. It's been 3 months since that first meeting. 3 months of cautious texts and occasional phone calls. 3 months of setting boundaries and watching to see if they respect them. They've told me about their search, how they never gave up, how they kept my room exactly as I left it, how they moved to a smaller house to pay for private investigators. They've shown me missing person flyers with my teenage face. They've shared the support group they joined for parents of estranged children, where they learned how their jokes were actually emotional abuse. I've shared small pieces of my journey: the shelter that helped me, the diner manager who became a mentor, the night classes and double shifts that got me where I am. I've told them about my apartment, my few close friends, my plans to finish my degree. We've met twice more, once for lunch, once for a walk in a park. Each time, it gets a little easier to talk, a little harder to maintain the wall I built. Last week, my mother asked if they could see my apartment. I wasn't ready for that. My space is still my sanctuary. But the fact that she asked instead of assuming shows they're learning to respect my boundaries. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive them. I don't know if we'll ever have a normal relationship, whatever normal means. But I'm beginning to see them as flawed humans rather than the monsters of my memory. They were bad parents. They hurt me deeply, but they're trying to be better people now. And I'm trying to figure out if that's enough. The strangest part is realizing that walking away at 16 was both the hardest thing I've ever done and the best decision I could have made. It forced me to become strong, independent, resilient. It taught me that I could survive anything. It showed me my own worth when no one else would. I don't regret leaving, but I'm cautiously open to the possibility that letting them back in, on my terms, with clear boundaries, might be part of my healing journey. They're not my parents anymore, not really. But maybe, someday, they could be something else. Something new. Something healthier. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. One text at a time. One carefully shared piece of my life at a time. And for the first time in 6 years, I'm allowing myself to feel something toward them other than emptiness. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. But it might be the beginning of the path that leads there. Update. 1 year later. It's been a year since they showed up at my door. A year of slow, careful rebuilding. A year of therapy, individual for me, couples for them, and recently, a few sessions together. I finally let them see my apartment 6 months ago. My mother cried when she saw the framed diploma on my wall. I'd finished my degree early. My father stood awkwardly in my living room, afraid to touch anything, until I told him he could sit down. We've established a routine of sorts. Sunday phone calls, monthly dinners, texts that no longer feel forced. They've met my girlfriend. They've heard about my promotion. They've learned who I am now, rather than trying to find the 16-year-old who walked away. In therapy, we've unpacked the jokes that drove me away. They've acknowledged the damage they caused. They've apologized, not just with words, but with changed behavior. They've never made another mistake, joke, not even about themselves or each other. Last month, my father asked if I would consider coming to their house for Thanksgiving. It would be the first holiday we've spent together in 7 years. I haven't given him an answer yet. Part of me is still afraid that if I let them fully back into my life, the old patterns will return. Afraid that I'll become that vulnerable teenager again. Afraid that I'll lose the strength I found in their absence. But another part recognizes how much we've all changed. How much work they've put into understanding their failures as parents. How much I've grown beyond the hurt child who needed to escape. I don't know what our relationship will look like in another year. I don't know if I'll ever call them mom and dad again, rather than their first names, which feels more comfortable now. What I do know is that walking away at 16 saved me. It forced me to build a life on my terms. It taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, support, and love that doesn't come with conditions or punchlines. The family I have now includes the diner manager who still checks in on me, the shelter counselor who helped me get my GED, the roommate who gave me a couch when I had nowhere else to go, and the girlfriend who loves the person I became through all of this. And maybe, in some new and carefully defined way, it might eventually include the 2 people who are trying to earn back a place in my life. Not as the parents who failed me, but as adults who recognize their mistakes and are doing the work to become better humans. I still don't know if I'm going to their house for Thanksgiving, but for the first time, I'm actually considering it. And that, I think, is progress.